The most important thing I've ever done in my entire life, beyond raising my two girls, is on December 27th, 2021, MJ arrived to Boston from Istanbul, where he reunified with his mom, Wasan. He and mom hadn't seen each other in 7 years, and it has completely transformed my life and my family's life. So the history of sponsorship in America is really quite a short history. If we go north and we look at Canada, for 40 years, the crux of refugee welcome and resettlement in Canada has been private. 2/3 of the 30,000 refugees in Canada are privately sponsored by private citizens, using their own resources and their own time to bring them in. But in the US, we never really had a culture of that over the past 40 years. The horrific fall of Kabul and the Taliban takeover, unfortunately, did present a ridiculous opportunity for us as America to welcome in 80,000 folks. When I met Welcome NST, and I met their founder, Liz, she just so authentically said, look, I know folks who want to step up and who want to welcome. She started by going to her individual ward, then to her broader stake, then to kind of the entire New England region. And it was particularly powerful. And so it started with just a tiny handful of LDS-driven groups, then it became interfaith, and now it's just all over the country and all over the place. Everything in this space needs to be brought down to a human level. I think that's twofold. One is it's just human nature to relate to an individual. To meet Mizgin and Adris and their 3 kids, Yazidi Kurds from Syria who are just fleeing and saying, oh my word, I can help this specific family. But when you hear about Assad bombing and gassing his people, that feels too overwhelming. You can't help put Syria back together, but you can help Mizgin and her family. And so absolutely, the crux of this work is making it go down on a human level. And there's a really fine balance that we need to strike, because first and foremost, we need to put these vulnerable folks at the center of all this work, and we need to uphold their dignity. And in order for us to be able to have the everyday American relate to that individual, we need to tell their story in a way. We need them to get to understand that single mom fleeing Putin's war in Ukraine, and that single mom fleeing the Tigrinya region in Eritrea, and that single mom fleeing gang violence on Honduras. Each one of us need us. Until one church or one synagogue or one ward steps up and welcomes them in, they're not going to be able to get to safety. And so absolutely every aspect of this work is figuring out how we can tell those stories on an individual basis, giving everyday Americans the confidence that you are good enough to do this work. Unequivocally, we need great resources out there, whether it's from a refugee resettlement agency, whether it's from an amazing grassroots organization like Welcome NST, or the Community Sponsorship Hub, which has kind of created this whole system nationally. There's expertise that we need on the ground. When somebody's in trauma, I'm not a mental health provider, I can't help them. But I absolutely can help them find an apartment. I can help them furnish that apartment. I can help enroll their kids in school, and my wife can help bring them to school with our daughter on that first day, right? Like there's so many pieces that we can do as long as we bring that story down on an individual level. So we believe that the act of welcoming in the stranger, welcoming in somebody who's vulnerable, who we don't know, is one of the most human, one of the most unifying experiences that can happen. We think it really accomplishes basically 3 goals. First, I can say firsthand, having welcomed 4 families over the past year and a half, it transforms the sponsor, the welcomer's life. It creates an incremental space for a vulnerable family to get to safety that otherwise would be displaced. And of course, there's the third piece, which is this massive societal win. You can think about that on so many levels. You can think about that on the fact that when community is involved in the act of welcome, people feel welcome. They integrate better. They economically integrate. They socially integrate. We're living in America with 10 million vacant jobs, and the only answer in the short term is to bring more folks in to fill those jobs. We're living in an America where we're having a more and more difficult time having thoughtful conversations and seeing each other eye to eye. And what I have seen from being here in Salt Lake City to Fort Worth to at home in Boston, this act of welcoming is ridiculously unifying. And so we have seen time in and time out, I'd say really since August of 2021, that this is one of the very few things that can bring America together in such an authentic way. There's no other faith tradition bordering on people that I'm aware of, like the LDS Church, that has similarities to the Jewish people. We're sitting here this week literally honoring folks getting here to a modern day proverbial promised land after being kicked out of New York in a really, really, really difficult journey. And I look around here in Utah as like literally the most welcoming state in America to refugees. And I can't help but note that this is a place that has learned from its history. Something that we quote often from the Talmud, from Rabbi Hillel in the Jewish tradition, is you're not required to complete the work, but you're required to start the work. And that, to me, just has to be where we always land, right? We can't stand there idly by. We can't stand there and just say, hey, it's too overwhelming. We can't stop the war in Ukraine. We can't stop the war in Syria. But we can bring an incremental family to safety, and we can transform a local community by doing so. And so that is really what drives us to keep going and to keep moving forward.